Hi. On the workbench this morning we have a NuTone IMA4406 in black. I've always been partial to the black ones. It always took the right kitchen and the right customer to be bold enough to buy a black master station. This particular black master station was sent in by Scott from Illinois. He's in Palos Park. He says in the note that he enclosed with the set, "Enclosed, please find the transformers for our NuTone intercom system. The intercom was installed as part of a new construction of our house, which was built in 1991. The intercom has functioned well until the past summer when we had a lightning strike in our driveway. We are sending the master station in a separate box. Here's my contact information. Please confirm receipt of both boxes and let us know what the next step might be. We're so thankful, yada, yada, yada. Scott." So, first thing we know is that Scott's 4406 is not from 1991 because 4406s didn't come out until 1996. And this is an IMA, so it's 2003 or later. And just quick visual inspection on the back of the unit, it's probably more like 2005 through 2010, somewhere in that range. Unfortunately, inside the door on the label where it says manufactured, there's no date, but it does have a serial number that starts with the letter S, which means it's most likely 2005 or later. He sent the master station and he sent the two transformers. They had the lightning strike. The report on the set was that, let's see, what did he say initially online? No clock, no door chime, no radio, no intercom, completely dead. He measured the transformers. There was no voltage coming out of the transformers. That's why he sent those along with it. Some of you may or may not know, these are NuTone 801T transformers. They are 18 volts at 72 watts or 72 VA for all you fancy new kind of people out there. Because of their size, they're big giant transformers. Inside they have internal fuses, and if they're overloaded, the fuses will blow and the output of the transformer goes dead. And that's apparently what's happened. It's a safety requirement for UL listing because of the amount of power that these can generate. These, in real world terms, put out about 4.5 amps each. It's a lot of power, and of course you don't want things catching on fire inside your walls. We're going to do an initial checkout of this unit. This is what I call Intercom Triage, because we're going to do a quick look at it to give some idea of what's going on with it, so then I can call Scott and give him either the good or the bad news. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to test the two transformers. I'm not going to test them by hooking them up to power initially. I'm going to test them by measuring the resistance of the output, which is measuring the output side or the low voltage side of the windings in the transformer. If they're good and the fuses are intact, there'll be a resistance measurement. If the fuses are blown, it's an open circuit and you don't get anything. So let's go ahead and give that a quick look. All right, you're looking at my Agilent 34461A multimeter, and here are the probes, and right now it shows overload because it's not connected to anything. It's in 2-wire resistance mode, and if I touch the probes together, you'll see that it reads 0.1 ohms because basically it's a dead short. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the probes on each of the low voltage output terminals of each transformer and see what we get. Here's transformer number one, and put it on the 2 screws, and we have nothing. So it's the same, it's an open circuit. It's the same as holding the 2 probes apart like this. So no reading there. So that one obviously has a blown fuse. And now we'll do transformer number two. This one says foosball on it for some reason. Don't know why that is. It's always nice when customers name their transformers, you know? It means they really care. Okay, measuring transformer number 2. Also overload, so no continuity there. It's an open circuit. So both of these transformers have blown fuses Fortunately, we're able to open up the transformers, replace the fuses, and make them good again. So that'll be later on because I have to check all this out and then I have to call Scott. I should also mention that during the course of this video, there will be a bunch of those little pop-up tags that come up here somewhere near the top that take you to associated videos about specific topics. As an example, the video about how you replace the fuses in the transformer. So we know these are both bad, so we're just going to put these aside because right now they're just bricks. All right, now we've got his 4406 to look at. One of the reasons I know it's a late model IMA 2005 or later is one, and you might be able to see it here, it's got pink serial number stickers on the boards, and they started using those around 2005. The other way you can tell is it already has the heatsink modification for the voltage regulator that tends to burn out, and that happened around 2005 also, even though NuTone always said it wasn't really a problem. So what I've got set up here is I've got it hooked up to my two AC bench power supplies, which is what we use when we work on intercoms, because having transformers bouncing around on the workbench is annoying. And we're going to go ahead and power it up and see what we get. So let's go ahead and give it a look. Now what you're looking at is my two BK Precision model 1653 AC power supplies. This is one and this is a second one. I have lots of these because these are very handy. These are actually isolated AC power supplies, sort of like a transformer driven Variac, which is a brand, not a device necessarily. The outputs here in the socket, and with my clever modification here where there's plug-in connections on the back that we use with these cables, these are isolated from the 110 power circuit in the shop. So when you're working on a device and you hook an oscilloscope up to that or something like that, which is also plugged into the electrical system, you don't create a loop and blow up your oscilloscope. So they're isolated AC power supplies. They are adjustable from 0 to about 225 or 30 volts, I forget. They do have the meter here, which you can set to either read volts or amps. I usually keep it on the amp setting because when I set these, the adjustable voltage, I do it with the multimeter to make sure it's what I really want, because these meters for voltage are rather crude, but the amp reading is close enough because it gives you a general idea what's going on. So we have the 4406 connected to each of the 1653s. A normally operating 4406 in good working condition will draw approximately half an amp. A half an amp is the 0.5 reading on the amp scale right here. It can vary a little bit from set to set, but not usually much more than that. So we're going to go ahead and power that up. We're going to hit them both at the same time, because if you were turning the circuit breaker on in your house, both transformers power up together, and that's the way you want to do it. So let's go ahead and flip these on. Watch the meters because this tells the story. Oops. Right now, I got to turn it off quickly. Each one is drawing over 2 amps. Okay, which means that this is one highly damaged 4406. So now we know that the transformers are blown up, and whatever blew up the transformers, probably the lightning strike on the driveway, also damaged the 4406. Now what we need to do is, we know this as a whole has a problem, but we need to be more specific with it, because when we call Scott, I have to sound like I know what I'm talking about. So what we're going to do is, we're going to quickly do a quick diagnostic on this to see if we can narrow down where the problem may be. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the chime module, because the chime module is not going to be the cause of the problem. Chime module is not going to create a situation where it's pulling 4 amps off the transformers, because it just can't, and it would simply burn up and fail, and then it wouldn't cause a problem. And mostly I'm taking it out because it's in my way. It's annoying. See, and somebody plugged it in wrong. Take this off. All right. All right. Oh, and just for your edification here. The screw, where did it go? It went in the little metal cup because we don't want to lose the screw because we've got to put it back later on. You'd be surprised how many people call me and say, oh, I lost the screw for my 4406. Do you have one? It's like, dude, no, I don't. Okay, so basic assembly of a 4406. This piece on the back with the big metal plate and the big aluminum heatsink underneath down in here. This power module. This contains primary power supply, amplifier, preamp. Okay, this is what powers the rest of the system. This is the part of the system that the transformers send AC voltage to. So if you have a big problem by pulling more than 4 amps off your transformer, this is where you want to look first. So the easiest way to check this is the other boards plug into the power module. So what we're going to do is we're going to unplug 2 connections here on the side, which send power to the microprocessor board and to the main audio board. So now those are isolated. This red and black cable sends the output of the amplifier to the audio board. That's been unplugged also. Down here, where it's hard to see, there's another connection that goes from the audio board into the power module. And this particular one has a wire tie holding the cable in place. So we're going to snip that off. And we're going to unplug this one. I have to lay it down to do that because it's a hard one to reach. And you don't want to break the connection like that. And then lastly, this line on this side is power supply to the CD player under the cover. We're going to unplug that. Yes, I have seen CD players fail, and fail in a way that they draw a huge amount of power and affect how the whole system operates. So what we've done essentially at this point is we have isolated the power module from the rest of the system. So we can turn the transformers back on and we can see if the short's still there. If the short is still present, the problem is at least in the power module. If the short is gone, then it's in one of the other boards. Now, I'm not going to move the camera when I turn the transformers back on. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Or maybe I can just point it up at the transformers and you can see it. Let's take a look and see. All right, that's pretty good. So you can see the 2 meters right here. And you can, this one's a little hard to see, but you can watch the needles. It's close enough. So let's see what happens. Ups, still more than 2 amps. All right. So the problem is at least in the power module. Could be other problems too. One of the other things that when I talk to people on the phone about problems with their sets, one of the things I try to always remember to point out is there isn't always just one problem. Everybody wants there to be just one problem. Oh, it's just the one thing that's bad. But no, that's not necessarily the case. Sets can have multiple problems. In fact, yesterday I was working on a customer's 4006, which he initially contacted me about in 2019 when he bought the house and it didn't work. And finally he got around to sending it. This was in January of 2022, so that's what, 3 years later. It was one of those kind of repairs that nothing except the clock worked, and every time I fixed one thing on the set and then other parts of the set turned back on, then I found 3 more things that are wrong. So that's like going down a rabbit hole. So let's go ahead and do a little more troubleshooting on our 4406. So we now know that for the most part, at least the primary problem is probably in the power module. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect it from the connectors for the transformers, or for the BK Precision, and we're going to take the power module off the back of the set. And when you do this, don't lose the support strap, and the screws go in the cup. Alright, now it's unscrewed, so it'll lift off. There is one connection over here that you can't see, and I'm not going to turn it around to show you because it's not that important. It's the preamp connection for the audio. And it's a little tiny connector and just unplugs. So we'll take our power module off and we'll put it aside. And we'll do a quick visual inspection. So, right off the bat, it would seem to be encouraging. So this is the main audio board, radio tuner, auxiliary audio inputs. This is, of course, the CD player, and then all of this is intercom control. Lots of times when we get sets in like this that have lightning damage or suspected lightning damage, transistors down in this area, I have actually had sets in here, I had one not too long ago, where the bodies, the plastic cases of the transistors are actually exploded from the lightning. I don't see anything like that here. It doesn't mean that things aren't bad. Things don't have to explode to be bad. In fact, that's rather rare. There can be a lot of other problems, but initial visual inspection seems like most things look intact. Now what are we going to do? Because we still have to call Scott today and tell him what we think, and I need more information, so let me pause it and get something. All right, so here we have a replacement power module. This one belongs to me. This is my shop power module. This is from an IMA4406. Probably similar vintage as Scott's, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, they're all pretty much the same. And what we're going to do really quickly here is we're simply going to install this in place of his, because this is a quick, easy, fast way to get some idea of what's going on. So we'll just sit that in there. There are actually 3 different power modules that were made for 4406s all together. I'm just plugging all the connections back in, and then we'll put a couple screws in to hold it in place because it's rather heavy and we don't want it falling off. It's of course easier to do this if I was standing on the other side, like that. All right. So there are actually 3 different power modules that NuTone made for 4406s. There are the power modules for the original IM4406s. That would be 1996 through about 2003, or end of 2002. And then the next version came out. Those are the ones that primarily have the overheating voltage regulator problem. And those were made up and through about the end of 2005 or so. And then the last version, which has the modification to it. There are some other subtle differences also, but those aren't really that important. So we'll go ahead and hook that up to our bench power supplies. And we'll go ahead and stand it back up. Now, the question is, what do you want to watch? Do you want to watch and see if it turns on here, or do you want to watch the transformers up there? I'm thinking you probably want to watch the transformers, because who wouldn't want to watch transformers? All right, we're back on our transformers. We have our replacement known to be good power module installed in the 4406, and it's connected up to the power supplies. So let's go ahead and flip these on. Keep your fingers crossed, because that always helps. And well, you know, we are drawing a little over half an amp. It's about 3/4 of an amp, which is fine. And when I turned it on, the 4406 went click, which is exactly what 4406s do when they first turn on. So we'll keep the video running. Excuse my panning and zooming and things like that. I know people don't like that. And what do we have on the master station? We have flashing 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock is good because that's the way it should turn on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the time. And it is actually 7:40 on Wednesday morning. Like that. So that's good. So we can set the clock, and I'm going to hook up an antenna to it on the back. And we're going to do FM. Good sign. Scan. Program that
in. A community star shining brightly. These communities in company, they've resolved over $1 billion in tax.
Ooh, $1 billion. That seems good. You can scan, program stations, reception seems good. Let's go ahead and plug Scott's chime module back in, because lightning tends to kill chime modules sometimes, and would be good to know. We'll do a quick chime module checkout here. Chime module works, and you might have noticed that while it was ringing the 8-note Westminster chime, I turned the volume, the output adjustment, down on chime modules. Chime modules, when they were new, did not come preset to any specific output level, and it was the installer's responsibility to set it up, because every house is a little bit different in how much sound you need. For the most part, everybody cranks them up all the way, which is wrong, because they don't understand about the system-wide adjustments for the rest of the system throughout the house. And the problem with overdriven chime module signals is, over time, because it throws the system out of balance, the other adjustments are incorrect, it takes out the audio intercom relays that all the audio passes through, and the relays after 8, 9, 10 years fail. And so if your chime module is excessively loud, it's a bad thing. That's why I turned it down. Okay, that all seems good. So the next thing we should do, because we're making good headway here, is we should set this up with a remote station and see if the intercom works. Okay, so we've got a terminal board, and we're going to go ahead and plug the master into it. This is the same terminal board that you would have in the wall in your house behind your 4406. This is the small terminal board setup. Where's the other cable? There it is. Because it only has one remote and a door station and a door station, but it's good enough for this kind of testing. We don't do the big setup until the very end. So I'm going to plug it into a door station. See, door station, specially modified for easy connection at the shop. Connected. Put that over there. It's got one remote station on it. This is actually an IS405 white. This is from a 4006 system. Same functionality, it's just different grill, you know, not a big deal. So let's go ahead and see if it works. Door talk. Make sure it's set up correctly. I don't hear anything. Inside patio talk. Nothing. How about from the remote? Nope. So you can hear the relays click, Okay, and you can hear them click here. Part of what you hear is the button being pressed, but then you can hear the click. It's kind of like click, pop kind of thing. But there's no audio. If we put this station on monitor, nothing. We put the master station on monitor, nothing. No. Okay, so the radio plays.
It can offer you to get rid of.
The chime module works. The intercom does not work. We'll push our luck here and see if the CD player goes around. What we got today? The best of Rod Stewart. No. CD player does not, oops. It works better if you plug in the cable. Wait a minute. All right. Now let's try it. There we go. What do you know? Remote music control works. That's what the IU thing was about. We'll turn the radio on. Alright, so the CD player plays, the radio plays, you can program stations, the clock works, the chime module works, the intercom controls seem to work, but there's no intercom audio, not the worst thing in the world to have. So the main audio board has some problems, and the power supply is blown up, the power module. So that's kind of where we are right now. The problems on the audio board are probably the reason why you remember that when we turned it on with the replacement power module, we're drawing about 3/4 of an amp. That's higher than normal for a 4406, and it's probably because there's damaged integrated circuits on the audio board and they're drawing more current. So what does that mean? Okay, so let's go ahead and take our temporary power module away. We'll unplug all the connections. And this one. This goes back on the shelf. We have problems most likely in this area of this board. We're drawing 3/4 of an amp instead of a little less than a half an amp, so it's about 50% more than it should be. And what you have to think about when you're troubleshooting something like this is what kind of components can draw the extra power without going up in smoke. Little bitty things like these little glass diodes here, they can't handle 3/4 of an amp. These are like 1/4 amp devices. So if they were drawing 3/4 of an amp, they would smoke and die and fall apart, and it would be obvious. So that's not it. Big power transistor here, sure, that can draw that. That could draw 2 amps, and it would get super hot, so it's easy to figure out because when you put your finger on it, it's going to be way burning hot, and you're going to have an imprint of a transistor on your thumb. These little small signal transistors here, those can probably get away with doing that, but again, they would get really hot and maybe burn up, maybe not. But more than likely, the problem is with one of these integrated circuits, either here, 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 this one, probably not that one, because that's an audio input circuit and that's probably not going to do it. There's little op amps down here. It's something like this. This kind of package, this can draw 1.5 amps, 2 amps without burning up. Sometimes if they get really hot, the case will become discolored and chalky looking, or it actually have a fracture in the plastic or something like that. So it's a little bit of common sense as to where the problem is. And the way we approach these kind of things is, if let's say we find that this is the problem, which I don't know if it is or not, but it could be, then all of the parts around it that are associated with the circuitry that this is a part of need to be checked, because if this is damaged, other things could be damaged. And lots of times what ends up happening is if this gets replaced, this all get replaced, and these all get replaced also, because if this one is shocked and damaged, some of these might be shocked. They might still work today, but how long are they going to work for? And I don't want the set coming back 3 or 4 months from now because one of these died and then there's another problem. So that's kind of what we have with that. So let's put this aside and do one more thing. This is Scott's power module, the one that's drawing 4 amps. We're going to take this apart real quick. There's a bazillion screws. And the screw gun is by far the best way to do this. Because standing there, oh, all the screws went in the cup, just like they're supposed to. And this one, you got to take this lead out from under the edge here. And you got to take this screw out. This is the one that holds the heatsink bracket for the voltage regulator to the metal plate. That one's best to be done by hand. And then lastly, I always leave this one in the middle for the end, because then the thing falls. We'll take the metal plate away, and there's our power module. So if we flip this around, I don't see anything that seems obviously blown up. Voltage regulators look intact. There's no signs of heat damage or anything like that. If we flip it over on this side, I don't see anything in particular. So my guess is, at the moment, that it's got failed amplifier circuit. So here on the heatsink, a little hard to see, this big transistor right here, big power transistor, it's matching one over here. This is the heart of the amplifier. Again, you have to look at this. You have to think about what's going on. So you have the power module. The power module altogether is drawing 4.5 amps, maybe, or so, something like that. 2.5, could be 5 amps. So what on this board can withstand the power of 5 amps, 4.5, 5 amps without smoking itself? Well, voltage regulators no. They're going to overheat. The cases are going to be discolored or cracked, and it's obviously they're blown up. All these little small signal transistors down here in the preamp, they're not going to handle 5 amps. They're going to poof. So what do you got? Well, what you got is you got big, giant output power transistors here. This amplifier makes 20 watts conservatively. So if it can produce 20 watts of power, it can withstand 5 amps of current, at least for a short amount of time. If you left it on for a long period of time, something's going to get hot and blow. Now, one of the reasons that things may not be smoked on here at the moment is also because, remember, we have fuses in our transformers, and as soon as whatever failed in this happened, it overloaded the transformers and blew the fuses, and this shut off. So how long was this on for in an overload condition? Could be a matter of just a few seconds. Not long enough for it to blow anything up, but the damage is still done. So that's the end of our intercom triage. I have enough information now that when I call Scott, I can tell him what I found and what I expect the repair to entail. I hope you found this interesting, and maybe for someone it will be helpful. If it is, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video. Oh, and there might be a part 2 once I figure out what's wrong with this, and the other thing, I'll show you the working set at the end. Anyway, see ya.